All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to Manor Lords, and welcome to part 3 of our tutorial walkthrough series. Today we're going to be focusing on logistics and industry. Now, our logistics and industry is going to be focused on reaching the next settlement level, which means we're going to need to upgrade some homes to level 3. If we click on one of our level 2 homes, you can see that there are 3 different types of needs that we haven't met yet, and they're all going to require us to have some form of additional industry. Our clothing stall supply is going to require us to have some advanced clothing. Right now we're providing leather, but now we're going to need to provide either shoes, clothes, or cloaks. We're going to need to upgrade our church, which will require some advanced building materials, and we're also going to need to provide our houses with ale, which will either require a relatively significant production chain or a significant investment in trade. So let's go ahead and take a look at how logistics and industry work in Manor Lords. Now, the simplest form of industry will actually satisfy the first of these needs. If we take a look at this house, you can see that clothing stall supply will be satisfied by shoes. Shoes are made from leather in a backyard extension. This house has an open backyard extension, so we can go ahead and construct a cobbler. This will cause this family to work as a cobbler. They'll take some of our spare leather and turn it into shoes. Let's go ahead and get this cobbler shop constructed. All right, we have our cobbler shop built. If we go ahead and select it and go to the advanced tab, we can now see how its production settings work. Let's go ahead and set our leather reserve equal to our number of houses. We have 23 houses. I expect we'll be expanding to maybe 30 or 40 pretty soon. So let's go ahead and set this to 30. That way we'll make sure we keep enough leather in reserve to last our town quite a while. Similarly, our shoe production limit we'll want to set to a relatively high number. So if we do have an excess amount of leather, we can satisfy those needs. So let's go ahead and double that to 60. So as long as we have over 30 leather, we'll turn them into shoes until we get to 60 shoes. Now, there's a reason we want to set these limits, and that has to do with our storehouse here, and it's one of the key ideas of logistics. See, each item that we produce, we need to consume in some way. If we're producing more than we're consuming, we'll eventually overflow. Now, items are stored in our storehouse and our granary, and with our granary, we have a little bit of leeway because the food does spoil slowly over time, so this will make room for new food to come in. But items in the storehouse don't spoil over time. So you can see that in our storehouse, for example, we have 378 firewood, 43 planks, 45 leather, and so on. If we were to overflow this storehouse with firewood, if we were to get another 2,000 or so firewood and completely fill this up, we wouldn't have any room for our leather boots, for example. Now, this early in the game, we generally are going to have plenty of space in our storehouse, so this isn't a huge concern, but it is something to keep in mind. Now, there are several ways to approach handling these limits, but the simplest is to set production limits on items that we're producing, and that will make sure that we don't overflow on too many different things. Now, before we go much further, I do want to expand our population a little bit, and I think I'm going to tear down these burgage plots and rebuild them. This is more of an aesthetic choice, and I'm a little sad to lose some of the progress on that vegetable garden, but our other vegetable garden is actually still overproducing vegetables for us, so we're going to be just fine. And we can go ahead and tear down these houses. I'm going to subdivide this plot over here. Let's see if we can get this the right size, because we're going to want a bunch of houses over here. So let's set up some new burgage plots to replace those. We can get 4 there, all with backyard extensions. That'll be perfect. And we should be able to get either 2 or 3 more after some of these construction materials have been taken out of there. But we can go ahead and build the other backyard, the other side as well. We'll soon have plenty of houses and plenty of workers. Now, these burgage plots I'm actually going to keep at level 1 for a while. Level 1 plots are much easier to satisfy their needs, and so that can balance us having some slight taxation or some level 2 or 3 plots that we don't quite meet all their needs in order to keep a high enough approval rating that our town stays in the green there, while we're in the process of setting up the systems that'll satisfy all of those needs. Let's go ahead and get our new burgage plots constructed. All right, and our new homes are constructed, families have started to move in, and we are approaching winter. We've also entered a drought. Fortunately, we'd already harvested all the fish we were going to harvest for the season, and the rest of our food supplies are mostly not going to be affected by drought, so I think we're going to be doing just fine in that regard. Now, it does look like we now have more houses than our well can provide. We could upgrade our well, but I think I actually want to remove it. So let's go ahead and tear this well down and construct a new one. And I think right over here near these other houses will be a good place for it. And this one will upgrade once it's constructed to a stone well in order to provide for up to 50 houses. All right, it looks like a bandit camp has been spotted and Hildebolt is moving to take it. Now that may give him enough influence in order to claim a region. So before he can do that, I'm going to go ahead and claim Nuslo and Hagenstieg. These are resource rich. They have rich stone deposits, rich clay deposits, and rich salt deposits. So we're going to go ahead and grab those. The remaining unclaimed region has lots of fish and lots of wild animals. But as those are both food resources and are not really things that we're hurting on in this time, we can save that. And if Hildebolt gets that region, we'll be able to claim it from him at a later time. All right, now that our houses are built, we need to figure out what we want to do with their backyard extensions. We could turn some of them into small vegetable gardens, chicken coops, or animal pens, or we could wait until we upgrade these homes and turn them into workshops. Now, some of these I think we are going to want to dedicate to food production, but let's take a look at our current food production and talk a little bit about how we can balance that in order to make sure that we're doing things efficiently and in a way that will last us well into the coming stages of the game. Let's start by looking at a food stall at the marketplace. You can see that there are 4 types of food listed there. That means that if we click on a house, we would satisfy 4 sort of tick boxes in the food stall supply category. That's the most we'll have once a house is leveled up to level 3. So with just the food types we're currently producing, fish, vegetables, eggs, and meat, we are satisfying our people's food needs. Now, each household is going to consume essentially one of these items at random each month, which means we need to continue producing them in more or less even quantities. Now, we currently have 25 families living in our town. I think we're going to expand that a little more and end up around 30 at the end of today. And since we're going to want a balanced food production profile for 30 people, we're going to want to be producing 7.5 to 8 of each of these items per month. Now, it's okay to overproduce a little because there's a little bit of spoilage for these items. But if we're overproducing significantly, then once again, we could run into storage space in our warehouse. Now, I don't see that being a problem with our current production systems, but if we were to build 3 or 4 more vegetable plots like this, we could definitely overflow our granary. But this does inform what we want to do with our backyard plots. If we count them up, we currently have 7 houses that are producing chicken eggs. That'll produce 7 eggs per month. Since we want to produce between 7.5 and 8, we could certainly have another house that gets a chicken coop in its backyard. That'll give us 8 a month, and we'll balance that food production with our current needs. We could even do a little bit more in order to account for spoilage, and that would be just fine as well. So we may end up doing another chicken coop or 2 somewhere in this plot of houses. Now, our meat production is being handled currently by our hunting camp, although our pastures are starting to fill up with sheep and lambs as well, and that'll be another source of meat going forward. We currently have 1 burgage plot that has an animal pen in it. I think it would be okay for us to do 3 or 4 more animal pens and split those between hog production, which will do an increase in meat, and goats, which will give both meat and hide. So let's go ahead and set up a couple of animal pens as well. Now, looking at these houses, we're actually running a little low on fuel and clothing stall supply, and I think that indicates a shortage of storehouse workers. If we go to our marketplace, yes, you can see we're overflowing on our storehouse supply capacity, so we are going to need to add additional workers to our storehouse. We could also build additional storehouses, and that's something that we'll look at here soon. Now, I do want to leave several of these houses open to become workshops, particularly on the front row. I think this sort of central town square with the church in the middle will end up being really nice if we get some nice upgraded houses in the front there. And then the further back houses will keep at a lower upgrade level so that the town sort of has this, tall, enriched central region, and then sort of slowly spreads out from there. Now, turning our attention back to our original goal, we can see that the cobbler is satisfying our clothing stall supply needs, and that we are producing plenty of shoes for our people. And so turning to our next need, we have our church level. Now, if we click on our church and go to upgrade it, you can see that we're missing a resource. That's roof tiles. Roof tiles are made from clay, which we could import from our trading posts, or we have a small clay deposit nearby. Now, if this were a rich clay deposit, we would want to research deep mining and make it a deep mine. But since it's a shallow one, we can simply go ahead and construct our mining pit on top of it. And that will mine the clay and store the clay in our storehouse. Now, this clay deposit only holds a total of 130 clay. Our storehouse has plenty of room to take up that much in excess, so we're going to be just fine there. Now, in order to produce roof tiles, we need to set up a clay furnace. We can set that up somewhere over here in our more industrial area. Perhaps right here along this road leading back into the woods where the clay is coming from. That'll work nicely. Now, the clay furnace requires two resources, the clay which it'll fire. It also requires fuel. And so having this near our storehouse where we're storing our firewood will make this a highly efficient building. Let's go ahead and get those built and get production of clay roof tiles underway. All right, and with our mining pit and clay furnace constructed, we can assign families to them in order to start mining clay and firing it into roof tiles. Now, again, because this is a limited clay deposit, once it's mined out, we'll be able to go ahead and destroy this mining pit and reclaim the space for another purpose, as well as our clay furnace, unless we wanted to import more clay to produce roof tiles. And clay goes into roof tiles at a 1-to-1 ratio, so with a maximum of 130 clay being mined from this pit, that will produce a maximum of 130 roof tiles, which will be stored in our storehouse. All right, as winter is setting in, we have enough resources to upgrade our church. So let's go ahead and get that constructed. All right, we have our stone church all finished. And with that, taking a look at our burgage plots, we only have one need left. So that is excellent. That's also going to give us a nice boost to our approval rating because that church level does build up and will do quite a lot for us. All right, and with those other needs satisfied, it's time for us to turn our attention to a tavern supply. Now, that's going to require us to construct a tavern and provide for ale. Now, constructing the tavern is no big deal. That's simply another building to set up. So let's go ahead and set up a tavern, and let's do this on this sort of central square. There we go. So we'll set up our tavern right there. And once that's constructed and we have a supply of ale in place, then that will provide for us. All right, our tavern is completed, and while it was being constructed, it looks like our mining pit ran out of resources. So we can go ahead and unassign the families there and demolish that mining pit, reclaim those resources, and then take advantage of those. Now, we still have quite a bit of clay in our storehouse. It's going to take a while to turn those into roof tiles. So we'll keep a family assigned to our clay furnace, and we may want to import clay rather than importing additional roof tiles as we need more in the future. So we may want to keep that clay furnace functional into that time frame. But turning our attention back to ale, we need to now come up with a supply of beer. Now, unfortunately, our barley fertility is still very poor throughout our entire region. We don't really have much opportunity to grow our own barley here. That's something we'll be able to do if we go a little further afield and set up some farming communities. But while we are staying close to home, we are going to have to rely on trade. All right, and another bandit camp has been spotted nearby. Let's go ahead and clean those out. Like the green caps will be great for us. And that should give us enough influence to claim this region as well. So the essentially the entire map will be red, and we should have much less trouble with bandit camps at that stage. All right, and with that bandit camp cleaned out, we can go ahead and disband these units. And we can now turn our attention to trade. Now, if we take a look at our flock of sheep, we have greatly exceeded the sort of 50 to 55 that we had set up as a target. Now, we do have a number of people working at our sheep farm and gathering wool, which we are trading away. And that's something we may want to continue, but I think we should, but I think if we're going to be importing a significant amount of beer, we're going to need to expand our trade offerings. And let's do that by establishing and expanding our sort of sheep industry and sort of the textile industry that it will support. Now, we have room in our pastures for up to 194 sheep. We want to leave a little bit of buffer space there, but we can go ahead and say that we can use maybe about 3/4 of that space for sheep and lambs, and then the rest we can, process either to provide food or for sale. Now, the easiest way to do that is to go to our livestock trading post and say that instead of importing sheep up to 50, since we're well over that, we're going to want to set our target number of 75 sheep, and we will export sheep if we have any over 75 there. That should do a pretty good job of capping our population levels at around 150 animals. Now, in addition to selling the wool, we can also construct another industrial building, a weaver's workshop. And let's go ahead and set this up right near our wool farm here on the main road. And here's where logistics starts to get a little bit more interesting. Right now, the sheep farm is going to harvest wool from our sheep, and the workers at our storehouse will travel all the way around. To our sheep farm to collect that wool, bring it back to the storehouse. The people working at the weaver shop will then travel all the way around to collect that wool from the storehouse and bring it all the way back. We can solve this by constructing an additional storehouse. And so I've left a little bit of space between these, and I think that's a perfect place for a dedicated storehouse for wool and wool products. Let's go ahead and get that constructed. All right, and with our new storehouse built, we can go ahead and assign a family to it, and then let's go into the Advanced tab and reject all goods to start, and let's only re-enable the specific items we want. In particular, we're going to want wool. We're also going to want yarn, and we'll take a look at a weaver shop soon, and soon we'll also take a look at a textile shop and see if there's something else we want to add to that. But for now, this storehouse is dedicated to those goods. And we can also disable the market stall setup, saying we just want this to be sort of a logistics checkpoint for this region. Now we'll go over to our other large storehouse and say we want to disallow wool and yarn. And that means that those goods will be transported out of this storehouse and stored over here at our sort of sheep industry district. Now, since wool and yarn are going to be used almost exclusively for trade export, and they have their own dedicated storage warehouse, I'm not going to be setting up production or storage limits on these, because we really want to just move through as much as we can. We don't need to worry about holding any sort of basic resources in reserve for anything else, and we don't need to worry about overflowing storage because the storage that we have is dedicated for this purpose. Now, the endpoint for the wool and yarn is our trading post, so we can go ahead and make sure that we are setting up a trading line for yarn as well as for wool. And so let's go ahead and export. Let's go ahead and set up an export rule there. And let's hold just 20 in reserve. So if we have over 20, that'll be fine. And we can go ahead, and I think we have enough money now that we can set up trade routes for yarn as well as for wool in order to expand how much we're able to trade of those goods. To further accommodate trade, we may also want to set up another hitching post right nearby that we can set a couple of horses, allow the people working at the trading post to drag a cart and sell 50 goods at a time instead of just 5 goods at a time. All right, and with these structures all set up and starting to churn away, we're starting to see a small stockpile building up in our warehouse. And soon we will be seeing the dividends of all this additional trade start to flow. All right, we're starting to see significant more cash flow into our region. So let's go ahead and go to our trading post and see what we might want to spend that on. Of course, we talked about purchasing ale. And in order to do that, we'll need to establish a trade route. So let's go ahead and set up that trade route. And then let's also go ahead and set up a trade route for tools, because any further advanced workshops we want to build, for example, if we want to construct a tailor's workshop, we'll need tools. And unfortunately, without a supply of metal, we'll need to have those imported. Now, taking a look at trade over the last month, we did gain 368 regional wealth. So we're doing a really good job in terms of generating some of that cash flow, and we should be in a good position to purchase some of the items that we are looking for. So if we go to our commodities tab, for example, we can say we want to import tools and increase this to 5. Now, each tool costs 16 regional wealth. So we don't want too many of these, and we aren't going to want to sort of overflow our stockpile on them. We'll want to instead populate another region and use the rich iron node in the next region over, for example, to start producing tools and then create sort of intra-regional trade in order to provide them to this village. But in order to get us there, it's okay to purchase a little bit, and the same is going to be true for purchasing ale. So if we go into our commodities tab, we can see that those cost 18 a piece to purchase. That's very expensive. Now, if we're gaining 300 to 400 regional wealth per month, we can balance that and go ahead and order in, let's say, an import rate of 20 ale. 20 ale. Now, with that 20 ale being imported, we can now assign a person to work at our small tavern, and that will start to distribute ale to the nearby houses. And as they start to gain that supply, we'll have the option of upgrading them. Now, while I was working, I did set up an additional set of burgage plots back here in order to expand our town just a little bit, make it a little bit larger, a little bit nicer, and to make sure we have plenty of workers throughout. Looks like our tavern has ale and has started to provide it to some of our houses. Let's go ahead and start upgrading these houses to level 3. Now, level 3 houses will also hold room for another family, which means that we'll have a little bit more supply for our people. They'll have a larger sort of local inventory that's going to be useful for our vegetable burgage plot here once we get some more ale imported. And they're also going to need an additional item of food. Now, fortunately, we have that, so our level 3 burgage plot should be very happy in our town. It looks like a new family has moved in. We're starting to see that some of our other houses are having their needs met as well. So let's go ahead and upgrade a couple of those as well. All right, and with those 3 burgage plots completed, we have upgraded our settlement to level 4 to a small town. Means we have gained yet another new development point. And that is exciting. And that is very exciting. We'll likely want to spend that on trade, but we'll take a look at that at a later time. For now, we have met our goals. Looks like our budget is still fairly well balanced. We're still gaining a significant amount of income. All right, with that goal met, there is one additional thing we can do with our sheep. If we take a look at our livestock, we are actually overflowing on sheep. Even though we are trying to export sheep over 75, we're up to 84. So I think what we're going to want to do is build another burgage plot right nearby. So we'll just set up a single burgage plot here, make sure that it has a backyard extension, and we'll go ahead and make sure this one has room for another family as well. Let's go ahead and get this built. And what we'll do here is we'll construct a butcher shop, which will take any additional sheep that we have and butcher them in order to produce additional food as well as additional leather for our town. Go ahead and expand the living space on this as well. And as soon as a family moves in, we'll be able to upgrade this to level 2 and construct a butcher shop, which will give us sort of an additional use for the excess sheep that we have in our town. While that's being constructed, it looks like we have another bandit camp that has moved in next door, but we also have enough influence to claim this region. So let's go ahead and claim it. Looks like the bandits have stolen 5 tools from us, so they're starting to be a real thorn in the side. We'll go ahead and clear them out of there. All right, it looks like we had a family move into our burgage plot here, so let's go ahead and upgrade this to level 2. As we get into the depths of winter, we can see that our food supply is a little slim. That's adding a little bit of priority to this, although I think we're going to be just fine. I think we're producing at about the right rate, so we're not going to see our food supply sort of stockpile and build up, but we're also not going to run low. I think we're actually pretty balanced in that regard. But this will actually give us a little bit more food, so we should see it start to build back up once we get this butcher shop constructed. Let's construct that butcher shop. All right, our butcher shop is set up. Let's go ahead and set this to meat, and let's change our reserve limits. We want to set our reserve limit on lambs to be very high, maybe 150. We want to have plenty of lambs, and let's set our reserve limit on sheep to be, let's say 75 as well, just like at our trading post. So that means that anytime we have more than 75 sheep, the butcher and the trading post will each sort of vie for those sheep and then sell them or provide them to our community as meat and hides in a more or less balanced way. And of course, we could prioritize one of those by reducing that number a little bit. For example, if our butcher shop, we dropped our sheep down to 74, then anytime that 75th sheep was born, the butcher shop would jump on it, and the trading post would only move in if we got to 76, if we had enough lambs grow up at once. And so that would reduce our sort of revenue stream, but would provide more meat and more leather for us. And similar, and vice versa is true if we were to set it to 76, then we would start selling the 75th sheep, the 76th sheep, but not butcher them until we exceeded that. Now our town is starting to shape up a little bit. It's starting to come to life, and it's looking rather nice with some of these level 3 plots nearby. We were able to expand a few more plots, so we're up to 7 level 3 plots now. All right, we're able to upgrade our cobbler shop as well as a couple more houses, and although I wasn't planning on going all the way to a level 5 settlement today, it looks like we may get there with just one more, just as soon as we get a little bit more regional wealth, just as soon as we see some more sales coming in from our trading post. We should be okay. Should be in a good position to get that. Now with that butcher shop running, we are going to start to see more leather and more meat come into our granary. And so those are things we're going to want to keep an eye on to make sure we're not overproducing. But it's going to be a while before that really becomes apparent or becomes a problem. So for now, I think we're going to be just fine. And yes, it looks like we can upgrade another house to level 3, and that will give us rank 4 of our town. Now we have stretched our marketplace a little thin, so let's go ahead and make sure we have plenty of workers at both our granary and our storehouse. And it looks like we've actually maxed out our marketplace. Let's go ahead and set up a new marketplace. Let's do this one in this region right next to our church. I think this will be a nice place for some additional markets, and we can even go ahead and demolish this marketplace, and those families will set up all their new stalls here. I think that'll really go a long way towards bringing our town to life and making things look nice as it starts to develop and expand. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. I think we've done a really good job setting ourselves up going forward. We've established an industrial area with well-handled logistics. We've got plenty of space in our storehouse. And the storehouse workers there will be moving the goods back and forth with everything localized. And that's going to make this very efficient, and it is indeed providing plenty of regional wealth for us. So we are able to stock our town with ale and continue expanding. So we are doing really well. So I think we're in a really good place now. And I think in our next episode, we are going to expand over here into Am Imberbach in order to establish a new farming town that'll act as a sort of breadbasket for the entire region, both in the supply of ale as well as bread and clothing. And so I'd like to thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me here in the world of Manor Lords. I hope you have found this video helpful or enjoyable. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an epic day. I'll see you soon.